Hello friends, I am Shivani Raikwar. Here I am going to present another interesting and learning episode of B.Pharma entitled as Records and Reports. Expert of the topic is Dr. Brajesh Kumar Tiwari, Assistant Professor at Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Dr. Hari Singh Gaur, Central University, Sagar. Today we are going to learn about records and reports. In order to assure that the practitioner pharmacist patient relationship exists and to promote the safe and secure distribution of drugs and devices from a pharmacy, prescription orders may be received for filling and refilling only by a pharmacist or a bona fide employee of the pharmacy. The pharmacist manager of the pharmacy shall be ultimately responsible for the safe, lawful and secure receipt of prescription orders and delivery of prescription drugs. Module 1 Introduction. Module 2 Prescription and Records. Module 3 Prescribing by Members. Module 4 Administration of Drugs. Module 5 Test Interpretation. Module 6 Ordering and Receipt of Reports. Now let's start with the introduction of records and reports with brief idea about prescription filling. Module 1 Introduction. Dispensing includes all of the steps necessary to translate a medication order, that is prescription, into an individualized medication supply that is both safe and appropriate. Below is a very brief description of what a typical visit to your local pharmacy may look like. Step 1. The pharmacist will ask if you have visited the pharmacy before. If the answer is no, you will be asked to fill out a consent form. This allows the pharmacist to fill your prescription. If the answer is yes, they will ask for an identifier, that is birthday or home address. This allows for an easy search within this pharmacy's computer system for your prescription records. You will then be asked if you have had this medication before and what it is being used to treat. This information will allow the pharmacist to personalize your medication counsel when the medication is picked up. Step 2. A pharmacy technician will enter the prescription into your profile, checking the doctor's information, medication, dose, indications from the prescriber, and quantity of the script. The pharmacy system will check for possible infractions or other potential issues through the Nova Scotia Drug Information System. Step 3. The medication bottle will be scanned and packaged with the lot and expiry. The medication is then counted for the designated quantity, labeled and handed off to the pharmacist to be checked. Step 4. The pharmacist will perform a check of your medication, reviewing previous usage, if any, and information entered at the beginning workstation. They will also print off counseling documents to provide the patient with more information on the medication. Step 5. The patient will pick up their medication and have a quick conversation with the pharmacist to ensure proper communication and compliance. Now coming to Module 2, Prescriptions and Records. Records required. The records set out in this part are required to be made and kept by the member as it applies to his or her practice. Authorization record. No drug may be approved for dispensing unless a record of the following is made and retained: the date and the signature of the authorizing member, the date and the authorization by the practitioner or extended practice pharmacist for dispensing the medication pursuant to a prescription, indicating where the prescription is a written prescription by the signature of the practitioner or extended practitioner pharmacist, or where the prescription is a verbal prescription. the name of the practitioner or extended practice pharmacist issuing the verbal order, and the signature or initials of the person receiving the prescription, and the number of refills authorized by the practitioner or extended practice pharmacist issuing the prescription. No drug may be prepared for dispensing unless an approval record of the following is made and retained. And this includes the prescription number and the signature or initials of the member approving the prescription for filling or refilling are required. There are concerns about the wording. No drug can be prepared for dispensing. It was felt in the retail practice model, the pharmacist doesn't always start the dispensing process and in a single pharmacist setting. He or she can't be counseling patient while the technician waits for the approval to fill a prescription, as the pharmacist must at some point before releasing the prescription to the patient approve the prescription process. It is recommended to change no drug can be prepared for dispensing to no drug may be dispensed. Counseling record. Not including inpatients of a hospital, no drug may be dispensed unless a counseling record of the following is made and retained. And this include A. Removed confirmation of the drug being dispensed and that the applicable standards of practice and practice directions related to counseling of the patient or their agent have been met, indicated by the signature or initials of the member or intent providing the counseling, and where the person counseling is a student, the signature or initials of the member supervising the student. B. Where the counseling has been refused by the patient or their agent, the name of the person refusing counseling and the signature or initials of the member being advised of the refusal. Additional counseling record. The counseling record for A. An inpatient of a personal care home, B. A resident or a group home, or C. A person who is not capable of comprehending the information and making a decision regarding their care must be made and retained, indicating the name or names of the caregiver being provided the information. This could become a paper nightmare trying to keep all these records. Not all prescriptions are picked up on the same day and excessive paper trail may result. It was felt by the committee members that patient counseling is valued. Spending time with the patient or agent counseling is more important than documenting that which is mandatory by the Pharmacy Act. Patient care would not be enhanced and may even suffer. Prescription record. In addition to the authorization, preparation, and counseling record, no drug may be dispensed unless a prescription record of the following is made and retained. And this includes A. The date, the prescription, and each refill of the prescription was dispensed, the name of the patient for whom the drug is prescribed, the address of the patient for whom the drug is prescribed, the name of the drug as prescribed, the manufacturer of the drug as dispensed, the strength where applicable and quantity of the prescribed drug, the directions for use as prescribed, the price charged, the name and address of practitioner or extended practice pharmacist issuing the prescription, and the signature or initials of the person preparing the drug for dispensing or of the member, intern, student or pharmacy technician doing the final check where the person who prepared the drug for dispensing was not a member or intern. Strike out preparation and counseling record. Add approval record. Method of keeping records. A. Where a signature is required, it must be an original signature or an electronic signature. B. Where initials are required, it must be original initials or an electronic signature. Hospital records. The prescription record for a drug prescribed to an inpatient in a hospital under the Health Services Insurance Act must show the name and location of the patient, the person that authorized the prescription, who prepared the medication for dispensing and performed the final check, the date the drug was dispensed, and the drug name, strength, and identification of the manufacturer. Food and Drugs Act applies. This section is subject to the requirements of the Food and Drugs Act under Canada and regulations regarding the retention of written records. Medication label. No drug may be dispensed pursuant to a prescription unless the container in which a drug is dispensed is marked with the following information: the name of the patient for whom the drug is prescribed, the prescription number, the business name of the pharmacy, the address and telephone number of the pharmacy, or where applicable, the telepharmacy remote site or satellite, the name of the drug, which includes where a single entity drug by its generic name and manufacturer, or where a multiple entity drug by its trade name, strength, where applicable, and quantity of the drug, the name or initials of the member approving the prescription for filling or refilling, the date the drug is dispensed, the name of the person authorizing the prescription under Section 58(1), the direction for use as prescribed, the price charged, and the number of refills, part fills, or doses remaining. Compounds need to be defined, how to be labeled, and that brand name referencing may be included on the label. Example, furosemide and generic for Lasix would be considered appropriate. Method of keeping prescription label record. The record required by this section may be recorded and retained in a readily retrievable manner, electronically or in written form. Hospital and personal care home medication labels. No drug may be dispensed pursuant to a prescription for an inpatient of a hospital or resident of a personal care home under the Health Services Insurance Act unless the container in which a drug is dispensed is marked in accordance with any pertinent standards of practice or practice directions. Patient profile. No drug may be dispensed pursuant to a prescription unless a patient profile of the following is made and retained. And this includes the name of the patient, the address of the patient, where the patient is Manitoba resident and a PHIN is assigned, the PHIN of the patient as required under the appropriate practice direction, a reference to the prescription number for each prescription filled for the patient, any written medical history or information collected regarding the patient, any declaration waiving of the use of a child-resistant container and the name of the person waiving its use, and any written authorization forms, order forms, terms of purchase and sale, or other agreements between the pharmacy and the patient. Under C would add only under extreme circumstances can a prescription be filled without a PHIN. Removing G, it was felt that these agreements are a business issue, not a patient care issue, and therefore it should be removed. Patient care issues would be covered under E. Method of keeping patient profile. The records required by this section may be recorded and retained in a readily retrievable manner, electronically or in written form. Central fill pharmacy records, where the pharmacy from which the drug is dispensed to a patient is other than the pharmacy in which the drug was prepared for dispensing. The pharmacy dispensing to the patient is responsible for retaining the prescription record, prescription label record, and patient profile record under this part. The pharmacy preparing the drug for dispensing must retain the prescription record and the prescription label record required under this part. The prescription label must, in addition to the requirements of the name of the pharmacy in which the medication was prepared for dispensing. The prescription record must, in addition to the requirements of the name of the pharmacy in which the medication was prepared for dispensing. The patient profile must, in addition to the requirements of, include written authority from the patient to share the patient's personal and personal health information with the pharmacy in which the medication is to be prepared for dispensing. And the involved pharmacies must meet any other requirements for the standards or practice or applicable practice directions. Acquisition and sales records. Every pharmacy manager shall keep a record of all acquisitions and sales of drugs for a period of 7 years. Remove all discussions took place on what records of acquisitions and drug sales really involves. If this means record of invoices and hard or electronic copies of prescriptions for a period of 7 years, this is already covered under the Income Tax Act and also under 67(1). If it means creation of a perpetual log for every drug in the pharmacy, as for narcotics presently, committee members felt this would be excessive administration. The results would not lead to better patient care or safety. Return to inventory. A drug must not be accepted for return to inventory if it has been previously dispensed. Exceptions on returns. Notwithstanding subsection A, a drug may be accepted for return for inventory if the lot numbers and expiry dates of the drug, where applicable, are directly attached to the dispensed container. The drug has not expired, where each dose of the drug or the container of the drug is sealed and the seal is intact at the time of the return to the pharmacy. The patient has not been in possession of the dispensed drug. The conditions under which the drug has been stored between the time of dispensing and the time of return are known and appropriate, and it is reasonably safe to do so. Where a drug is returned to inventory, the acquisition record must include the following: the name of the drug returned, the drug identification number or name of the manufacturer of the drug returned, the strength where applicable and quantity of drug returned, the date of the return, and the prescription number of each drug returned where applicable. Method of keeping acquisition records. The records required by this section may be recorded and retained in a readily retrievable manner, electronically or on paper. Drug destroyed, not including drugs that have been previously dispensed, new, or any drug provided for an inpatient of a hospital where a drug is destroyed. The disposal record must include A. The signature of the member authorizing the destruction. B. The lot number and the name of the manufacturer's product destroyed. C. The reason for destruction. D. The strength where applicable and quantity of drugs destroyed. E. The date and manner of destruction or where the destruction was performed by a person other than pharmacy, the name, address and telephone number of the person who destroyed the drug and the date the drug was released to the person. It was felt this requirement would be too time consuming for pharmacists and would not enhance patient safety. Committee members felt narcotics and controlled drugs would be covered under CDSA. Destruction records would have to be kept for these drugs. Methods of keeping disposal records. The records required by this section may be recorded and retained in a readily retrievable manner, electronically or in a written form. The Council may create the M3P Schedule of Drugs. M3P prescription requirements. A prescription for a drug listed on the M3P schedule must be dated and signed by the authorized practitioner on a form specified by the laws. Contains only one drug product prescribed on the form and contain all of the other information required. Limits on dispensing. A drug listed in the M3P schedule must not be dispensed unless the person dispensing the drug has taken reasonable steps to satisfy himself or herself that there are no questions. The prescription meets all the requirements of subsection 1. The prescription is entered into DPIN in accordance with any applicable practice directions, and the prescription is dated by the authorized practitioner within 3 days of the date it is presented at the pharmacy for filling. Change from within 3 days to within 7 days to reduce voided prescriptions. This would also benefit people traveling long distances for care, giving them the option of having the prescriptions filled in their regular pharmacy. Prescription and patient information must be entered into DPIN in accordance with any applicable practice directions. If the requirement of subsection 2 are not met, the person requested to dispense must refuse to fill the prescription and advise the patient or his or her designate and the authorized practitioner or other person who issued the prescription of the refusal. Record the refusal to fill the prescription on the prescription form and in DPIN in accordance with any applicable practice directions. Retain the prescription forms unless the patient or that patient's designate requests the prescription be returned, in which case a copy of prescription form must be retained. There is a concern that some dispensing software may not easily accommodate refuse to fill prescriptions. This section does not apply to a prescription for a drug that is listed on the M3P schedule. If it is to be administered to a patient in a hospital or a resident in a personal care home, if the facility is designated under the Health Services Insurance Act. Patient access to records upon request by a patient. A member must provide a copy of the information on the prescription record, the prescription label record, the patient profile, and any other record maintained the pharmacy as it relates to the patient making the request and is consistent with the requirements under the Personal Health Information Act. Retention of records. A member or owner must retain the following records for a period of not less than 7 years after the circumstances giving rise to the creation of the record, which includes authorization record, approval record, counseling record, prescription record, prescription label, patient profile, acquisition and sales record, restriction of record, prescription which were refused to be filled under section 68(4), prescribing record, drug administration record, test interpretation record, and test ordering and result record. Remove section C, G, and H and subject to other committees' review, and accept with the exclusion of schedule 2-3 drugs and accept A, B, D, E, F, I and change 7 years to 3 years. Access to retained records. A member or owner must make all records it is required to retain available within a reasonable time during an investigation under Part 6 or an inspection under Part 10 of the Act. Coming to Module 3, Prescription by Members. Prescribing record. A member who issues a prescription must make and retain a record of the name and address of the patient, date of birth of the patient, where the patient is a Manitoba resident and a PHIN is assigned, and the PHIN of the patient, the name of the drug prescribed, the strength where applicable and quantity of the prescribed drug, the directions for use, the number of refills available to the patient, the name of the member issuing the prescription, the date of the prescription, and the treatment goal, diagnosis, or clinical indication when issuing the prescription. Method of keeping prescribing records. The information required by subsection 1 may be recorded and retained in a readily retrievable manner, electronically or in written form. Continued care prescription. Prescribing record not required. This is concern about the possibility that this may include everyday recommendations by pharmacist. This should be specifically included as excessive documentation may actually do more harm than good. Coming to Module 4. Hope now you have understood the prescription and records. Now we will go for the brief overview of the administration of drugs. Administration of drugs. Administration of drugs by members. Drug administration record. A member who administers a drug to a patient must make and retain a record in the pharmacy of the name of the patient, the address of the patient, the name of the drug and total dose administered, the identification of the manufacturer, lot number and expiry date of the drug, the route of administration, the name of the member administering the drug, the date and the time of administration, any adverse events, and the price where there is a charge for administration. Method of keeping drug administration records. The information required by subsection 1 may be recorded and retained in a readily retrievable manner electronically or in written form. The committee did not have a definition of administration. Overall, it was felt the section was good, but members were concerned about having a document common services such as opening a pill bottle for somebody at the pharmacy so they can take a dose or other services that could be performed by a lay person. Coming to Module 5. As we discussed in above modules that how the drugs are prescribed, recorded and their administration follow in the hospital. So in this module, we will discuss with an example of a test interpretation record. Test interpretation. Test interpretation record. A member who interprets and makes a recommendation to a patient regarding a patient-administered test must make and retain a record in the pharmacy of the name of the patient, the address of the patient, the nature of the test interpreted, the results of the test, the nature of the advice given to the patient, the name of the member interpreting the test, and the date of the test. Method of keeping test interpretation records. The information required by subsection 1 may be recorded and retained in a readily retrievable manner electronically or in written form. Documentation requirements could prove excessive if we have to document every time somebody self-administers a BP test or BG test and asks our opinion. Coming to Module 6. After understanding about prescription and record with their administration, now this is ready to use as a reference for the prescriber and other medical staff. Finally, we will learn about the ordering and receipt of test reports. Ordering and receipt of test reports. Ordering tests by members. Test ordering and results record. A member who orders and receives the results of a screening or diagnostic test must make and retain a record in the pharmacy of the name of the patient, the address of the patient, the nature of the test ordered or recommended, the health professional to whom the results were forwarded or the recommendations was made, the name of the member requesting the test, the date the test was ordered or recommended, the date the results were received, the date the results were communicated by the member to the health professionals responsible for the patient's care. Now we have come to the end of the episode. Conclusion. In order to assure that the practitioner pharmacist patient relationship exists and to promote the safe and secure distribution of drugs and devices from a pharmacy, prescription orders may be received for filling and refilling only by a pharmacist or a bona fide employee of the pharmacy. The pharmacist manager of the pharmacy shall be ultimately responsible for the safe, lawful, and secure receipt of prescription orders and delivery of prescription drugs. Method of keeping test ordering and results record. The information required by subsection may be recorded and retained in a readily retrievable manner electronically or in written form. This is Shivani Raikwar signing off. If you want to learn more and enhance your knowledge, you may log on to our website for MCQ, quizzes and LORs www.cac.nic.in. Till then, keep studying. Goodbye and see you in the next episode.